Namaskar. Inspired talks of Swami Vivekananda. Om Namah Shri Yatirajaya Vivekananda Suraye Sachit Sukha Swarupaya Swami Netapaharine. It was July 19th, 1895. Swamiji was talking to his disciples. So we had covered where Swamiji is talking about man is free and must rise above both sides, where he discussed how consciousness is a bondage. We had left at the point where Swamiji was talking about individuality. This kind of discussion from Swamiji sounds so much like personality building, so much like psychology, so much like general understanding, and also philosophy. Those of you who might have read my book, Carving a Sky, Carving a Sky is essentially based on this principle of individuality and universality. I find this discussion, this very topic, extremely fascinating. Individuality and universality. When the Upanishads talk about Aham Brahmasmi, they mean to say this very thing, that Aham is individual, Brahman is universal. You wrongly think that you are an individual, whereas in reality you are the universal. Give up this ego and you will realize that you are universal. Sri Ramakrishna very beautifully used to say that Kachami Pakami, unripe ego and ripe ego. Unripe ego is where you identify yourself with the limited. Ripe ego is when you identify yourself with the unlimited. Now this idea, it is there. It is there in our scriptures, but Swamiji has made it so powerfully clear, so glaringly clear, that it's a treat. It's a treat to read and discuss this. What individuality? We shall see. Swamiji speaks just 2-3 sentences, and you can easily write a book on this. You can try. If you have time, if you have inclination, and if you think you have thinking power, do write on this. The issue of individuality and morality, what Swamiji is talking here. Tulsidas, the great saint poet, defines individuality as me and mine. Nowadays, this popular idea, I, me, mine. When you're thinking only I, me, mine, you're talking about the limited individuality. What is real individuality? In one of our previous talks, we had given the example of think of a plank of wood. It has an individuality. Unfortunately, that individuality is one with the collective. By collective, we mean that you cannot differentiate one plank from the other. When you make a chair out of it, it now actually gets an individuality, but it moves away from collectivity and is now more in towards universality. And when it becomes a well-decorated chair, and from there a throne, is getting more and more individual. It's getting more and more individuality, and hence more and more universality. This is the example I use, and I was so happy when This idea had come to me while writing my work, Carving a Sky. Real individuality, real individuality is when you have all the qualities where that differentiates you from the collective. Collective means that which can be replaced by any other thing. How do you, supposing, think of a crowd? There is a political crowd. Some election rally is going on. Why do we say it's a collective? Because if you take away one person and put another, it won't make any difference. But when you think of Einstein at Princeton University, you cannot remove Einstein and replace him with any physics teacher. That means Einstein is special. Individuality actually means speciality. And when we're talking about speciality, actually it is universality. Einstein can behave like an ordinary person. You can use Einstein as a gatekeeper. It happens sometimes. There have been cases where in Russia, when there was this communist revolution, it had forced its mathematics, one particular great mathematician, to act like a janitor. So a great mathematician can act like a janitor, but a janitor cannot act like a professor. Therein lies the individuality of the professor. Therein lies his universality. True individuality lies in universality, not in the smallness of individuality. My dear viewers, my dear listeners, those of you who have been listening to these talks with sincerity, of course, unless you have sincerity, you won't be listening to these talks. This is a strange paradox. Such a strange paradox. I mentioned once in the talk. Long ago, I was young and I was very angry with someone, and I told my respected Acharya, Swami Mokshadanji Maharaj, I still remember, and I told very angrily that, see, these people, they won't even let me have my self-respect. And Mokshadanji Maharaj had very beautifully responded. Have you realized yourself that you talk about self-respect? See what happens when you are with the greats. The greats do not give you great teachings. Greats give you very ordinary teaching, day-to-day teaching. It's those teachings that change your life forever. I still talk about self-respect. I'm still conscious of my self-respect. But every time this topic comes, I also remember the words of my great teacher that when you really talk about self-respect, first you have to know yourself, Atman. Unless you have known Atman, unless you know who you are, how can you even talk of self-respect? People who have no quality, when you say no quality means less of universality. It's they who talk maximum of individuality. Once it so happened that somebody was talking to me. I once mentioned about one laborer, and somebody said, you consider someone superior and someone inferior. If you read my book, Carving a Sky, such a simple method. There's no question of superior, inferior. There's a question of, do you have more qualities or do you have less qualities? When you compare between a cobbler and a king is not superior because he's a king. He's superior if, when their roles are exchanged and the king proves to be equally good, at shoe mending. And the cobbler has to prove that he's equally good at running the kingdom. It's about qualities. If I want, I can be a janitor, no problem. But can our janitor here come and take these classes? No, he cannot. Well, there might be somebody living in a disguise, that's a different issue. But we are talking about normal cases. No, that is what makes the difference. True individuality lies where actually you are more universal. He, here, Swamiji is talking about the individuality where we limit ourselves. Here, individuality means limitedness. Think of a vast snow field. Just think. And just imagine that snowfields, there are different snowballs. They are all snow. But now they are like snowballs. Now each snowball is trying to maintain its identity. Instead of considering itself snow, which is universal, it treats itself as a ball. Now, the moment you treat yourself as that ball, that is the individual, first thing is you will like to preserve your identity. The moment you try to maintain and preserve your identity, you become exclusive. When you are inclusive doesn't mean that you don't have a personality. Truly inclusive people will have massive, massive personality, very powerful personality. But they will always also give space to others. The problem with exclusive people is that they don't give space to others because they are weak. If you are weak, you don't give space. If you are strong, you give space. If you are strong, you are inclusive. If you are weak, you are exclusive. These are the basic ideas that we discuss so that we can proceed. It's a very interesting topic, very interesting topic. I mean, you don't even feel that you are studying scripture, but you're studying scripture. Yo vai bhuma tat sukham. Joy lies in identifying yourself with the great. This small never gives you happiness, and yet you identify yourself with the small. Such an irony. Such an irony. Why we suffer? Dear viewers, dear listeners, ask yourself, have you ever suffered pain? Have you ever felt sad? If yes, just look back and see whether or not it was because you were identifying yourself with the limited. You were considering your individuality to be something which was small. As a consequence, all struggles to lose this individuality are virtues. What is virtue? All struggles to lose this individuality. There's a fundamental difference between the Upanishadic outlook and the outlook of the Semitic religions. By Semitic, I mean Abrahamic religions. In Abrahamic religion, all the three, actually they're extremely exclusive religion. There is brotherhood. There is brotherhood in Judaism, in Christianity, and in Islam. Outside that, they become extremely exclusive. But worse, what is the purpose of their religion? What role religion plays in their life? They'll say, be a noble person, not universal minded, so that you can go to the heaven. And once you go to the heaven, what happens? You maintain your individuality. You read their scriptures and you realize whatever kind of heaven, in these Islam, followers of Islam and followers of Christianity, they have been at loggerheads and they fought battles and this and that. Although Hindus and Muslims never had this kind of war, but Christians and Muslims had. So this war spilled over to philosophy, and some Christian philosophers came up with the idea of Islamic heaven is highly materialistic. But what about your own heaven? What about the heaven of Christianity? They are also extremely materialistic. In Hinduism, in Hindu religion, the goal is not at all to go to the heaven. Heaven is just a passing phase. It's just a midway station. The goal is to merge your individuality. Now, in case of Christianity and Islam too, the great saints, the great saints, their goal is to merge their individuality in their respective Easter. Now we are talking about the common idea, common people. However, here in Hindu religion, this idea about individuality and universality and merging this individuality forever in universality is a very fundamental thing with us. Even a villager will tell you, Aham Brahmasmi. The goal is Aham Brahmasmi. Atma Gyan, Brahma Gyan. These things you will hear everywhere. It has entered our bloodstream. Now, whenever you are struggling to break down this individuality, by individuality we mean limitedness, because this is one serious problem with philosophy. Sometimes we use words which have a particular meaning, but you intend to say something different. The real individuality lies in being universal. Unfortunately, we identify our individuality with being ordinary. And by ordinary, we mean replaceable. Factory product, when you look at any factory product, like you go to a shop, you want a soap, you go to a mall. One soap is as good as another soap. There is nothing to choose between. Both the soaps have come from the same factory, same brand, same packaging, same price, everything is same. So one is replaceable by the other. Now, if one soap talks about its individuality, won't it be very stupid? It will be. Aren't we doing the same thing? Each one of us is replaceable by anyone amongst us. It's unfortunate. If you really want to have individuality, if you really want to have self-respect, you need to have more qualities. You must be irreplaceable. What is the goal of life? To be irreplaceable. Or even if you are replaced, irreplaceable means that if someone comes, the gaping hole should show. People should know. Oh, this loss can never be compensated. This is the idea. So Sri Ramakrishna was a real individualistic person. He was the man with individuality. Swami Vivekananda had an individuality. No one can replace them. Jesus had that individuality. Remind yourself, you need to be great. You need to have an individuality. And for all that, just remind yourself, you need to be irreplaceable, not in your home, but in the world. In this world, you must be irreplaceable, at least in the area in which you are working. For example, think of Einstein going in a tribal area. Now, there, Einstein's physics is not of much use. Somebody who can cut woods will be much more useful. We are not talking in that sense. We are talking in the sense of the field in which one excels. Very interesting thing. Any comment, anyone? No. So, this topic continues. Everything in the universe is trying to break down this individuality either consciously or unconsciously. Now, here is a statement that you will not find in any scripture, you will not find in any philosophy book. This is the beauty, this is the beauty of Swamiji. That he's explaining something, he's giving us a new scripture, he's giving us quotable quotes, and those quotable quotes are also explanations. Rather, every explanatory statement is a quotable quote. It is absolutely unbelievable for us that anything that is happening to me or to you, anything, anything, actually it is trying to break the barrier between you and the universal. And in the process of this breaking, pain is a more powerful blow giver. When you get pleasure, when you get happiness, when you get stability, when you are feeling good, when there is feel good factor, that is also trying to break you free of the mold in which you are. However, when pain comes, it gives you a more powerful blow. Whatever, like Sri Ramakrishna says at one place in Gospel, here in this world we all come to perform some duties, to work out our karma. We have some responsibility, we just are working out our karma. Why? By doing our duty, by performing our duty, by doing this and that, we actually grow. Now, every time we talk about growing, you must have heard of this expression, growth. Growth is life. What is the meaning of growth? To break down your individuality and be more with the universal. And once you become more universal, more people will get shelter with you. More people will be benefited by you. More people will be inspired by you. A mom, a mom moves away from her personality of being a young lady. Now, even her kid and kids can identify themselves or themselves with mom. She has become now more inclusive. But when you're a real great teacher, like Swami Vivekananda was, many can identify, many can come and take shelter. Swami Vivekananda also had to face blows. Now, it's not that only the blows work, even the good things. For example, when Swami Vivekananda went and met Sri Ramakrishna, there was no blow involved. However, that event made Swamiji move more towards universality than the individual that he was. It's a very, very, very fascinating subject. Those of you who are interested and those of you who really want to work, I request you to write a page Just write a page, not to show to anyone, just for yourself, your understanding. What do you understand of individuality and universality, and how it has affected your thought system? If you want, you can send it to me. I mean, I'll respond. Our email ID is ishrkm. I'll just write it here for your convenience. If you want, you can send. But it has to be an original work, nothing copied. I'll not respond if it's not a good work. Just one page. Because it's a phenomenal thing. It's not an ordinary thing. This idea, if you can understand that the goal of life is to move from being individual to universal, or the goal of life is from being the fake individual to real individual, from being fake to real. The Vedic prayer, Asato Ma Sadgamaya, take me from untruth to truth, is about this. I'm tied down to fake individuality. Oh Lord, take me to my real individuality. Sri Ramakrishna says, Kacha Ami, Paka Ami. It's a fascinating subject. Fascinating subject. It's more to come. So sometimes consciously, sometimes unconsciously, your individuality is being broken. Your individuality is being broken down. Why God created this universe, how He created, we have no idea. But if we apply our mind, the way we apply our mind, we know that we are here, we need to get out of this. How to get out of this? By breaking down the cage. How do you break down the cage? Break down this fake identity of being an individual. All morality is based upon the destruction of separateness or false individuality, because that's the cause of all sin. Oh, sin. Very powerful statement. Very, very, very powerful statement. Sin. You have to allow me to say something which we have discussed many times. The idea of sin in Hindu religion and Semitic religions are different. However, the driving force in both cases is same. In Semitic religions or Abrahamic religions, sin is an act of transgression against the will of God. So when God willed, when God commanded Adam and Eve not to eat from the tree of knowledge, there was a transgression. And since then, every Christian is a born sinner. God must be a very powerful sin. In Islam also, if you don't listen to what Quran has said, it's a sin. Shirk, sin. In Hinduism, your goal is to be universal. If you make a detour, if you're changing your path, why? Why you're changing your path? Why do you want to do something? Because selfishness is involved. Your individuality is involved. Your Swamiji says that false individuality is a false individuality. You have this false individuality. This false individuality identifies you with a fake identity. You want to retain that fake identity. Because you want to retain that fake identity, you transgress. This transgression can be of your own words, of your path or God's command. When somebody cheats, when somebody becomes corrupt, what exactly is happening? He knows that he should not indulge in corruption. He knows he shouldn't cheat. Still, why does he? Because this false individuality overpowers his mind and makes him do things which are in his self-interest. The goal is to move towards universality, which means follow the norms, but he owns. And to avoid going insane, he justifies his acts. So comes morality. Why morality? Once morality comes, it won't let you go astray. Now, morality, whether it comes from, say, Bible or from the Vedas, the instructions come always from the great teachers. It is not the product of your mind. No. And great teachers, those who have seen truth or who claim to have seen truth, they say that don't do this. Just that in Abrahamic religion, it appears like the will of God. In Hinduism, it is kind of counsel. Don't do it. If you do it, your path will become longer. Because there is no hell in Hinduism. So fascinating. So all morality is based upon the destruction of separateness. Whatever religion you take, whether it be Buddhism or Jainism or Hinduism or Christianity or Islam, when you think of comparative religion, where all religions meet, this is one of those points where every religion meets. They all want to break down your individuality. No religion wants that you be exclusive. But selfish that we are, self-centered that we are, and we have been taught since our childhood to be self-centered. That's the training we have. We cannot get out of it. Nowadays, we come across come across many mails and many connections where people say that, look, we have been moving away from religion, and our kids don't know about our religion. Oh, why do you need religion? Believe me, many seniors, I mean, those who have crossed 50, contact us. They want that we should teach their kids religion. Why do you need religion? Because without religion, you become self-centered. As you become more and more self-centered, you go more and more into sin. You sink more and more. And ultimately you bring destruction upon themselves, upon yourself. There's this famous story coming in the Upanishads where the demons and gods went to Prajapati to learn spirituality. They were both told, you are that. Demons thought that, well, I am that, when I am Atman. So I must indulge. Since then, demons have been indulging. And when they indulge too much, they are no more asur, they become bhasmasur and they destroy themselves. When you focus on too much of false individuality, you go into self-destruction mode. We don't even realize this. Realization comes only when there has been self-destruction. Just making a slight detour. Bhasmasuri is my very favorite character because it epitomizes every evil and all the ills of the society. What's that? When you are not religious, you become self centered. That means you focus more on false individuality. From there, you go into acquisition mode. And from acquisition mode, slowly you start moving towards self destruction mode. And finally, you self destroy yourself. Dear listeners, look back at your life. See if you had pain. See if you had to shed tears. Find that it was all because of your identification with false individuality. The instructions of religion, the instructions of spirituality are meant to break down the barrier between the individual and the universal. Then morality exists first, and later religion codifies it. Every religion does it. Now this is very, very, very interesting. Think of the sorry. Think of this marriage in Islam, four wives. When Prophet Muhammad came on the scene, people of Arabia had no compunction in giving up any wife. They could just marry at will and throw them away at will. And suddenly came this idea that no, it has to be stopped. And then it was codified in religion. Something wrong. There's something wrong in the society. Nowadays, of course, say for in India or in any of these democratic countries, instead of religion, they use constitution and there is penal code. However, nothing like religion. When religion codifies it, a man is ready to die and a man becomes ready to kill if it's from religion. First comes morality. It shouldn't be done. Religion codifies it. Once it is codified in religion, now it can be changed only by a great religious leader or by some very powerful social force. So, very often people ask us, well, Hindu practices are not good. This is not good. That is not good. I say, be a saint, and you say that I'm a saint and I command that this be changed. In Mahabharata, we come across many interesting stories where some say just proclaims today onwards, the custom will be like this. In Judaism, morality is treaty with God. There's 500, 550 or so treaties with God, inviolable. Same in Islam. These are the words of Allah. Cannot be violated. Not in Hinduism. Can change. Only a saint can change. No, not ordinary persons. Now, customs come first and then mythology follows to explain them. This is again a very phenomenal statement from Swamiji. I mean, every society has its own custom. If you go to America, Americans have their customs. You go to Europe, Europe has its own custom. You go to Israel, Israelis had their own custom. Go to Arabia, they have their own custom. And then comes mythology. Mythology explains those customs. Today itself, I mean, you need to mark this date. I read a very interesting news in Yemen. I think Yemen. There's a huge hollow there in one of the desert, and people of nearby village say that it's a huge hollow, maybe 150 feet across, something like that. I never thought that I'll I will be discussing this in the talk, so I did not pay much attention. The bottom line is the villagers there, they believe that that hollow cave-like thing is inhabited by evil spirits. And even if you take the name of that place, the evil spirits will capture you. And this has been for thousands of years. Now, recently, some cavers, they decided to explore and said that the evil spirits, they give out such foul stench, nobody can near, and it's a well of poison and things like that. There was a myth. No villager would go anywhere near it, and it was like real hell. Then three, four brave hearts decided to explore, and they went. There was stench, but nothing unbearable as such. So they went down some 60 meters, 70 meters, something like that. And then they found that there was water, and birds were there, dead birds were there, dead animals were there. And it was all big snake pit. There were snakes and snakes and snakes. And the dead birds were releasing that foul smell. So all that combined thing was. And if somebody by any chance fell there, he had to die because snakes were there. So see, first you have custom because born of some situation. And then you create a mythology. And then some fertile mind will come and create a story out of it. It's not only that Indians create, we in India create stories. This is everywhere, everywhere, everywhere. Something is there, and based on that, some reality, some customs are born. And then around that custom comes mythology. Then people forget the events, and mythology becomes all important. So, two aspects of religion Swamiji is discussing. One, morality. Second, mythology. Every religion has these two aspects, morality and mythology. Morality is basically the instructions given by a religion to break down the individuality. And the customs based on these rules, these practices, etc., they give birth to myths. And slowly a religion is taking shape. Every religion has this. Morality will always be there and myths will always be there. While things are happening, they come by higher law than reasoning. That arises later in the attempt to understand them. Now comes the third. Those of you who have been listening to our talks and maybe reading our books would remember that every religion has four pillars. Philosophy is the highest of them. Then you have rituals, mythologies, and morality, that is conduct. And all these four come from realization. There is some great person who has realized the truth. So in India, we had a huge number of sages who were face to face with the divine. They said they have realized truth, and others too can. Same with other religions too. Now, based on what they had experienced, slowly morality developed. Because what's the meaning of seeing God? What's the meaning of self-knowledge, Atmagyan? All these things mean becoming universal from being individual. Nothing else, nothing else. Religion has only one goal: to break down your individuality and make you universal. Science also does the same. When physics is working on a formula, equation, and science is working on certain formulas, it's just trying to unify. See, One of the most amazing things that I find in science, of course, science fascinates me, is no one single thing is periodic table. Somehow, periodic table fascinates me. When science had not yet advanced so much, there was this Mendeleev who organized all the known elements in a particular way. And it hasn't changed since then. And it leaves scope for future elements too. What an amazing mind. Or Maxwell, when he unified electricity and magnetism. See, scientists, scientists are those who find the key to making things universal. When you think of elements, they're just diverse. They're diverse, no relation with each other. Science brought them on a single platform. There is periodic table, and later when the structure of atom came, suddenly we realized they're all one. This is what religion also does. Says break down the individuality, and you will know that you are one with everyone else. Right now, Hindus think they are separate from the Muslims. Muslims think they are separate from Christians, who are separate from Jews. There's separateness, separateness, separateness. Religion is giving you that hammer by which you can break down that barrier. Science is giving you the key by which you can organize things. Ultimately, science and religion are working towards the same purpose. Finding the key to universality. By universality, we mean that by which whole thing can be brought into a pattern. So, oh yes, Shastramananda Swami is a very learned monk. He has mentioned mysterious hollow cave of Yemen. It's a very interesting thing. It just news had just come. I chanced to read that news. So while things are happening, they come by a higher law than reasoning. So first we mentioned morality, then we discuss mythology. Now comes the reasoning, that is philosophy. Reasoning plays a very important role in religion. Those who have a very sharp mind, they want to cut away all this morality business and this mythology business. They want to understand things the way they are. So reason, it tries to understand what's happening. It tries to find the key. Like in Upanishads, we find Am Brahmasmi. That's the key. The key that opens the door for the individual to the universal. However, reasoning is not the motive power, it is chewing the cud. Reasoning actually doesn't take you there. It looks back at everything and chews the cud, the way cow chews the cud. Reason is the historian of the actions of the human being. This is coming from Swamiji. Or I don't know, he might have taken this sentence from someone. Reason is the historian of the actions of the human being. Human being does something. And then, as a historian, reason codifies it. You'll find this thing best explained. Of course, every philosophy does it. We cannot single out any philosophy, but Hegel is the best. When Hegel came up with his dialectic materialism, he came up with the idea of thesis, antithesis, synthesis. Now, what is very interesting about Hegel's theory is that you can organize things that are in the past. You cannot predict the future. Those of you who have some idea about philosophy will know that. No wonder Schopenhauer called him monument of German stupidity. See, when you're looking in retrospect, when you look back, things become absolutely clear. Oh, it's this. This happens with everybody. Why? Because when you are in the present, too many data keep flowing. We are looking at future. Many more possibilities are there, and actually you cannot work out them. To give you an example, when there was this war between Israel and the other nations, Arab nations, there is Israel intelligence agency very clearly said that there will be an attack at 3 p.m. day after tomorrow. Next morning, again they said, and on the day of the attack, they said time has been changed. The attack will come at 4 p.m. No preventive action was taken by Israeli army, and at 4 p.m. attack began. There was no retaliation initially. Then, of course, Israelis beat them into a pulp. But why it happened? When the intelligence agency is very clearly telling you that on this date at this hour, enemy will strike. The problem is the intelligence agencies had given 10 different warnings in last 15-20 days, and Israel doesn't have a standing army. So they had to mobilize people who are working as doctors and engineers. They had to give up and they had to come running. So now the army commanders, they thought that there is also crying wolf. So they did not pay any attention. In retrospect, you realize why didn't. But you are forgetting that before that also there were many false alarms. And when there are too many false alarms, you tend to become lax. In retrospect, in hindsight, you feel why it was not done. And of course, heads rolled after that. My favorite example is that in 1969, when America sent its rocket to the moon, all the great scientists applied their intelligence and they went on predicting how the future will look, how there will be colonies and how will be mid colonies, how these things, so many type of things, and how world economy will change because of things like that. And no one predicted the rise of computers and the rise of internet. In less than 10-15 years, the world was swamped by computers and internet. So why these great minds could not predict? Have you seen one single scientist predicting something new, something fresh? Never. Just never. And if you are interested in this thing, you just need to search for false predictions by the scientists. In last 100 years, the crazy things that the scientists have been predicting. Why? Simply because reason is the historian of the action of the human being. There are some actions. We people have been performing some action. For example, just think of, say, today's situation. Here we are. Can you predict what the society will be like say after 10 years, forget 100 years. No, you cannot. Try doing it. Write it down. And it has to be a qualitative difference. For example, see, Swamiji himself, Swamiji has made lots of predictions. Way back in 1900 or so, he said, whole of Europe is sitting on a power keg. It will explode any day. In less than 15 years, there was this First World War. Swamiji says that mass awakening, he meant communism, socialism will come either from Russia or from China. First it was from Russia and then from China. Within 18 years. In the event of India becoming free, China will attack India. India became free in 47. Within 15 years, China attacked India. When Nehruji, the great politician, was telling Hindi Chini Bhai Bhai. Swamiji said in 1897, the Shudra caste will go away from India. Who will do the work of Shudra? Machines. See, machines have taken over. Even when I was kid, say 40, 50 years ago, there were specialized people who used to do certain kind of menial work. Now machines do all that. Most importantly, it said, from the day Sri Ramakrishna came, Satya Yuga has begun. Satya Yuga is characterized by knowledge. Today, this knowledge. Knowledge rules. I have a very strong desire to write a book on futurology. Because reason is the historian of the action of the human beings. Not from that standpoint. Just looking at what Swamiji has said about future and concluding from there and see how things change. Just think if somebody in India had thought in 1900 that Shudra caste will not be there the way we understand and that their work will be taken up by the machines. And if somebody had got down to this thing, like let's go for this industrial revolution, how things would have changed in India. Or the very idea that Satya Yuga, it will all be about knowledge, knowledge, knowledge. How this knowledge can come. Not through normal means. There cannot be any miracle because human beings, when they evolve, it's more or less linear. It's a fascinating subject. So, under normal conditions, when you look back, you apply reasoning. You apply reasoning to what? There are disjointed events, and you try to link them up. When you are trying to link them up, you say that you have come up with a wonderful reasoning. But you're forgetting that there are so many events about which you don't even know the unseen factors. And that is why the real knowledge which belongs to the higher realm, which comes only to the sages, to the saints, to the realized, they see world differently, scientists see differently. The worldview of the scientist is hugely inferior to what these sages see. So, well, our time is up. We'll take up next time. Thank you. Thank you so much.